Hello and welcome to another video in my Web API.NET Basics tutorial series. As always, go ahead and follow me on GitHub, visit my website, and if you have any questions, you can send an email. Now, in the previous video, video number 13, I showed you how to consume the Web API into a console project. Now, I'm assuming you already saw that because much of what we are doing in this video will depend on what we did before. So some of the steps which are already done, I will skip them. Now, the goal here is last time I was able to go ahead and get the output in a console window, but I want to do something better here. I want to be able to, I mentioned in the previous video that, ultimately when you're developing an API, you build an API, but you also integrate your API code with other APIs. So this is the scenario we're looking at right now. So what I'll do here is I'll go back to my work diary and I have that here. Okay, so we have gone ahead and finished the console project. Next, I want to go ahead and build a web API project that consumes the NASA APOD. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go ahead and say project, and I'm going to say, I'll call this one NASA APOD web API. I don't think I have to keep using the word project every time. So let's go ahead and come back to Visual Studio. I still have my console project open. Let that be. I'll open another Visual Studio instance and I'll create a new project. And I have ASP.NET Core Web API. Next, I'm going to put this in my, there you go, the repository that I'm sharing with you guys. There we go. Project name, and next. .NET 8.0, HTTPS, Open API support, that is Swagger, and use controllers. Looks good. And there it is. So we have all these things. So if I just go ahead and build this, make sure everything is fine, and looks good. And I click, we run it, make sure the Swagger is running, and great. This is good. Yes. Okay. So now what I want to do is I already have a controller called weather forecast controller. I'm just going to add my NASA to this. It's fine. Okay. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to add the new controller here. Okay. Now there are different ways to add new endpoints, but I want to follow the way I'm doing it in my existing project. So whenever I want to add a controller, so what do I do here? So if I go to my controllers, I go to my blob controller. What do? I always try to use something like this, HTTP get, root, something like this. So this is what I want to do. So I'm going to go ahead and just copy this and put this here. This is the standard format I want to follow. So I want to say HTTP get. The root, I'm going to call this one get NASA APOD. That's it. Yeah, that's it. And I'm going to call this function also get NASA APOD. And here I have something called task response DTO. So I don't want to talk about DTOs right now. We will talk about that later. But what I do want is I want the class that I created in the previous project. So what was that called? I'll go back to my previous project. I have this class called NASA APOD response. So I'll copy the title, come back to my project. Here I'll create a folder called I'll just call it DTOs for now, even though it doesn't make much sense right now. I mean, it does make a sense, but I'm not going to go into explanation right now. So I'm just going to call this NASA APOD response. I'll go back here and I'll take this class code. I'll put that here. Good. And I want to use this in my controller. Okay. And what is the red line? What am I missing? Oh, right. I deleted an extra curly braces. Okay, there we go. So now what I want to do is I want to go ahead and say, get that code from my previous project. So all I have to do is I go back here. Now this is my own code, so I hope it's okay if I just copy paste it. So I am going to go ahead and copy the whole thing, including the URL. So this is my own code I did in the previous video. So I hope it's okay if I copy it. So there we go. Now, obviously, I don't have the package installed. So if I go here, it says I can install the package. So I get the option directly. So I'm going to go ahead and just install it. It'll happen in the background. Once the red line goes away, it's done. There it is. It's done. So now this is an API endpoint So obviously console.writeLine will not work. So we are going to delete all the console.writeLine lines. Okay, and let's do that. Cool, that part is done. And what I want to do is, before I test anything, I just want to go ahead and I'm going to say var response is equal to new NASA APOD response. And here I'm going to say return response. Okay, so now there are no red lines. So this code, I'm going to comment it for now. Okay, as if it's not there. And I'm going to put a breakpoint just to see if the endpoint is looking fine. So here I'm going to say build, rebuild. No errors, a couple of warnings. We'll worry about that later. And I'm going to run this. I want to see if the endpoint, there it is. The endpoint is working. And if I go here and click on try it out, there it is, example value, looks good. I'll click on execute. There it is. And I have continue, and the response is looking fine. Everything is null, which is fine. So far it looks to be okay. So now what I'll do is I'll come back to my project. I'll uncomment the code from my previous project, from the previous video. So everything looks fine here, and I don't want these things. Let it be, it's okay. Let the comments be. And I will once again run this. I'll put a breakpoint just before the response. Here we go. So this is what we are doing. We are trying to consume the REST APIs. That's all we are doing. So I'm using simplistic code here. And I'm going to come back to my Swagger. Let me put the Swagger on the right side, Visual Studio on the left side. Let's see how the breakpoint works. So I'll go here, try it out. And I want to say execute. Cool, it started already. And I'll click on continue. Make this a little bit bigger. Hold on, make this a little bit bigger. Oh, it went away completely. Oh, shoot. Yeah. Okay, let's make this one a little bit bigger. Okay, much better. So continue, continue, using, continue, 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 continue. Great. Result, yes, we are getting it. Right, there you go. And I want to say continue. And the response is still null because we're not assigning the value. So that is a problem. So that's what I want to fix though. So if I click on continue, I'm getting a response. I'm getting 200, which means everything is great, but I'm not getting the actual data. So I'll go back to my code, and here I'm going to say after result object, I'm going to say response is equal to result object. See, now let's try that one more time. Cool, try it out, execute, there it is, continue, continue. Okay, let's keep going, and continue, continue, continue. There we go, result object is good, and continue, and response, yes. And now if I click on continue, I see that the response is fully updated. Great, which is what we wanted, and that response is coming here. Very, very nice. So that is all we wanted to do. But before we go, we know it's working in Swagger. Why don't we test it out in Postman as well, just to be on the safer side? So I'm going to get the URL from here. This is the URL. I'll come to Postman. And here I'm going to say, let me disable the breakpoints. So let me disable the breakpoints. Come back here, selections, and I'm going to say duplicate. And this is from my endpoint, and I'm going to say from web API, APOD, cool. And here I'm going to use this one, hit save and send. Yes. So you might be thinking, look, we go here and we hit send. I don't know why APOD API is slow today. I don't understand why. I'm not sure. This might time out. Yeah. But you'll face these issues. You know, we are not making any mistakes, but still something is going wrong. I don't know what it is, right? So there you go. It's timing out. But if you take this and directly test it in your browser, it's working. So we're not making any mistakes, something. So I really don't know why it's not working fine in the console. So I don't know. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is, so we are getting the same information here, and we are getting the exact same information from my web API as well. But why do this? So the reason is very simple, like ultimately the objective of this video is to show you that in your own API development, you can integrate that with some other API. And this is a very, very common scenario. This is really what is called API integration. For example, like in my own projects, I'm integrating the API with Stripe API. In another project, I'm integrating the API with the Azure Blob API. So you're always integrating with APIs constantly. So this is a very essential skill. So there you go. So this seems to be working now, right? We are able to build our own endpoint, and that endpoint is talking to the NASA API endpoint, getting the information as a JSON string, and then converting that, deserializing it into a C# class object, and finally returning that as a response on our API endpoint. So far, this is definitely looking really, really nice. And that is what I wanted to show in this video. So NASA APOD API, build the web API, consume the REST API using the HTTP library. So that part is done, and I'll see you in the next one.